بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وعباد الرحمن الذين يمشون على الأرض حونا وإذا خاطبهم الجاهلون قالوا سلاما. This is chapter 25, verse 63. I'll read the last part again because I misread it. إِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. And the servants of the Beneficent are they who walk on the earth in humility. And when ignorant address them, they say, peace. The next verses are from chapter 31, verses 18 and 19. وَلَا تُسَعِّرْ خَدَّكَ لِلنَّاسِ وَلَا تَمْشِ فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ كُلَّ مُخْتَالٍ فَخُورٍ. وَاقْصِدْ فِي مَشْيِكَ وَاغْضُضْ مِنْ صَوْتِكَ إِنَّ أَنْكَرَ الْأَصْوَاتِ لَصَوْتُ الْحَمِيرِ. And turn not your face away from people in contempt. Not go about in the land exultingly. Surely Allah loves not any self-conceited boaster. And pursue the right course in your going about, and lower your voice. Surely the most hateful of voices is braying of asses. Sadaqallahul Aliyyul Azim. This is the first anniversary of the events that took place in Washington, D.C. last year at the inauguration of President Biden, when Capitol Hill was attacked by a whole crowd. And I've recited these verses because such events take place because there are some people who are arrogant and boastful. They cannot see how anyone can disagree with them. And in fact, the first lesson in Islam that we have is the lesson of humility. Remember the story of creation? When God told Satan to prostrate, to bow to Adam. And Satan was arrogant and he was boastful, and he said, why should I do that? Why should I bow to another creation? I'm superior to him. And you can see that this is the attitude that leads to these problems. And just like Satan fell from grace, people who are arrogant fall from grace. The purpose behind this story, because the Holy Quran revealed by Allah, and Allah has a purpose in telling us these things. People just take them as mere stories to be recited and elaborated and so on. The purpose is that the first lesson taught to creation was of humility and humbleness. And if you're arrogant, it leads to your downfall. It doesn't matter whether you are an individual, whether you are a country, whether you are a nation, or whether you are an organization, whoever you are, whatever you are, it leads to your downfall. And it's not just the guidance in the Holy Quran that tells us to be humble. I mean, after all, well, we'll come to this in a minute. Perhaps I deleted that by mistake, but let me say this now, that our worship is called ibadah. And what does that mean? That means humility. So, all the time, in every worship, we are saying, trying to tell ourselves, our souls, our psyches, that we need to be humble and how humble we are. Ibadah, it means to be humble. But let's take the example of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. He was never arrogant. He didn't go around boasting. He didn't say, I'm the Prophet of Allah. This job is too inferior for me. He cooked. He mended his shoes. He mended his clothes. He cleaned his house. He washed his clothes. He washed pots and pans. He dug ditches with others. And so did his companions, and so did early generations of Islam. In fact, at one time, someone went to see him and he was preaching Islam to some chiefs of Quraysh, and this humble person, this blind person, kept on interrupting the Holy Prophet. Because he was blind, he didn't realize what the Holy Prophet was doing. And the Holy Prophet became irritated at these constant interruptions and turned his face away. And God had admonished him that the blind man came and you turned away from him. And the Holy Prophet had to ask that man, apologize to that man, and explain what had happened. This is in the Holy Quran. But there are many other examples. Muslims marched out to give battle at Badr, and the Holy Prophet arranged the army. And a man went to the Holy Prophet and said, this arrangement, is it divinely ordained? And the Holy Prophet said, no. I thought this was the best arrangement for the army. And that companion, Radiyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, suggested that while different formation might be better. So what did the Holy Prophet do? Holy Prophet said, why? And the man explained. The Holy Prophet didn't say to him, I'm the Prophet of Allah, God speaks to me and I've arranged it this way. Who are you? Who are you to tell me to rearrange the army? He said, you're right. That's a good idea. This is what we will do. And he rearranged the army. You see, once you become arrogant, your mind is closed to anyone else's suggestions. You think, I am high and mighty. I know everything. I am the best. Who is this person or that person to tell me what to do in this situation? Hazrat Umar, he was leading an army to Damascus, and his assistant was Hazrat Abu Ubaidah, And as they reached some water, Hazrat Umar got off, took his shoes off, tied the shoelaces together and put them on his shoulder. Then he unburdened his camel and he led his camel into the water and started to wash it to cool it down. And Hazrat Abu Ubaidah was amazed and he said, O Amirul Mu'mineen, how can you be so humble in front of all your men? This is not just being humble in private. There's a whole army, 50,000 people watching you. And you take your own camel and you start to wash it. What did Hazrat Umar say? Hazrat Umar said, woe to you, Abu Ubaidah, if only anyone else other than you thought this way. Thoughts like this will cause the downfall of Muslims. Don't you see? We were indeed a very lowly people. God raised us to a position of honor and greatness through Islam. If we forget who we are and wish other than Islam, which elevated us, the one who raised us will surely debase us. This is the man who's the ruler of the whole of Saudi Arabia, the whole of what is now Israel and Jordan, all the way to Syria in today's geography. And he is washing his own camel. And he's saying it is Islam which teaches humility that made us great. And if we forget this, then God will forget us and we will again be humiliated. When Muslims had attacked Jerusalem, the church fathers there, they said, well, we are happy to hand over the keys of the doors of Jerusalem, but there's one condition, that your leader, your king, must come in person to collect the keys. So when this message arrived in Medina, Hazrat Umar set off. And for Jerusalem, he only had two things, one camel and a slave. So it was decided that they will take it in turns to ride the camel. You see, people talk about and criticize Islam for not abolishing slavery. Here is the head of state, accompanied by a slave. There's only one ride. And the head of state shares that ride with the slave. Was this done by the Romans or the Greeks or the plantation owners in the United States? No. Slaves were not human beings with any rights. And that was what was said by a man who badly beat his slave. And when a lawyer took him to court, his stand was, well, this slave is my property. If I take an axe and destroy my table or my chair or anything in the house, will you bring me to court? It's the same. He's my property. I was angry, I beat him up. So what? But here is the head of state sharing his ride with his slave. And when they arrived at Jerusalem, it was the slaves' turn to ride the camel. And Umar was walking, Radiallahu Ta'ala was walking next to the camel. And people who saw it were amazed. They didn't know who was riding and who was walking. So they went and started to pay their respects to the slave until people pointed out that the slave wasn't the head of state, it was Hazrat Umar. And the people of Jerusalem were amazed by this example of humility and humbleness and equality. And that is the point. That is the point. That humbleness and humility leads to equality. Otherwise, on some basis, whatever it might be, you become disunited. Because you know, it doesn't matter what you do. You're not going to get promoted because of your religion, your sect, your color, your caste, your creed, whatever. So why should you bother? All discrimination is based on arrogance. Whatever discrimination it may be because of your color or your family or whatever else it might be, or the size of the house where I live. And this has been said to someone. He was proposing something that was patently, not a good idea. And I pointed this out. And he looked at me. And he said, I have such a successful business. I have such a big house. Do you think I got those by coming up with ideas that are not good and then that are not correct and that don't lead to success? So it said to me, this man was arrogant because of his business success. This man was arrogant because of the size of his house, the size of his businesses, whatever he did. Arrogance closes your mind to the truth. And there are many examples. There are many examples. Here's one from physics. In the days of old, it was thought that light consisted of particles, like a series of footballs following each other. And there was some evidence for that, like reflection and refraction and so on, which showed that light, yes, indeed, could be a series of particles following each other. But then there was a guy called Huygens, I think he was Dutch. He observed some other things called interference patterns, which could only take place if light behaved like sea waves, the waves cancelling each other out. And he put this forward. And Newton rejected that idea. He said, no. I'm a great scientist. I've been given all these honors and everything. And that idiot from Holland, whom no one knows, and no one knew Huygens, he tells me that I'm wrong. You see, Newton's arrogance was based on his fame, that everyone regarded him as a great scientist, as a great physicist, and so on. And yes, in many things he was. But then he had become arrogant, and that arrogance had closed his mind to new ideas. And you sometimes come across such people. In my professional life, I was in court talking to someone and etc. And he asked me something. And I replied, And he turned round and he looked at me because he didn't like my answer. And he said to me, "No one can teach me anything about the law." Well, fair enough. Why did you then ask? That's the first question. But you see, that means that your mind is closed. Arrogance has closed your mind. And as I said, its disadvantages that this discrimination, this arrogance leads to discrimination, which leads to disunity. Because people then belong to congregate together. I belong to this caste, I belong to this family, I belong to this sect. Others are going to discriminate against me because they think they're better than I am. So whatever happens, we've got to stick together for our own survival. And that can be any characteristic, as I said. Can be color, can be language, can be caste, creed, religion, sect. These days in the West, we have Islamophobia, which is exactly the same thing. And over again, we read and about riots and things that take place, and people are saying, oh, we don't want Sharia here, and we don't want Islam here, and so on and so forth. And to give you one example, they object to the early age at which girls are married off. They don't have to be married off, at which Islam allows girls to be married off. It's a whole topic, and I'm just summarizing it, not very accurately. But anyway, did you know that until I think it was 2018, parents, this is in the United States, parents could marry off their girls at any age, 8, 9, 10, 11. Even now, out of 50 states in the United States, there are only 5 in which underage marriage is a criminal offense. A new bill is going through the American Senate or Congress or something to make underage marriages a criminal offense and so on. But the point is this, that when you become arrogant, then you stop looking at yourself and you just want to find something wrong with other people. And that stops your own progress. That stops you from improving and becoming a better person. And at the end, I want to share something with you that makes me really sad. That these days, politics has become such a game that you have to be arrogant and boastful to get ahead. People who are humble, people who display humility, they don't get anywhere in politics. As we can see from various examples in the West. And that is a major reason why the Western society is facing difficulties, and this may be the cause of its downfall. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Qur'anil azim wa nafa'ana wa iyyakum bil ayati wa zikril hakim innahu ta'ala jawadun karimun malikun barraufur rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udzu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama sallaita ala Ibrahima wa ala ali Ibrahima innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama barakta ala Ibrahima wa ala ali Ibrahima innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma ansur man nasara dina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam waj'alna minhum waqsul man khazala dina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa la taj'alna minhum ibadallah rahmakumullah innallaha ya'muru bil adli wal ihsani wa ita'i zil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkari wal baghi ya'izukum la'allakum tadhakkarun. Uzkurullaha yazkurkum wad'uhu yastajib lakum wa la zikrullahi akbar wallahu ya'lamu ma tasna'un. There are some people just finishing off their sunnah prayers, so we'll wait for 1 minute while they complete before we start our farz prayers. So I hope you will bear with us for 1 or 2 minutes. We are just waiting if you just join us. Ready? Okay. Allahu Akbar, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah, qad qamatis salat, qad qamatis salah. Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin. Alam nashrah laka sadrak wa wada'na anka wizraka alladhi anqadha dhahrak wa rafa'na laka zikrak wa inna ma'al usri yusran inna ma'al usri yusra. فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده.
ربنا
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. والتين والزيتون وطور سينين وهذا البلد الأمين لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم ثم رددناه أسفل سافلين إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فلهم أجر غير ممنون وما يكذبك بعد بالدين أليس الله بأحكم الحاكمين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده.
ربنا
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أستغفر الله. أستغفر الله. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا اللهم أنت السلام وأنت الملك. Thank you for joining us for our Friday service. I think it's the first Friday in 2022. And I pray, and I hope you will join me in my prayer that Allah may be merciful and keep the whole of humanity safe and free from harm. And we soon overcome the difficulties, that is, humanity overcomes the difficulties it is facing with various viruses and so on. Inshallah, as I said, as I always say, our next broadcast is tomorrow at 1 p.m. on Pure Discussions on WhatsApp. And then, inshallah, then Monday 7 p.m. Urdu, 7:40 p.m. English. Monday to Thursday we'll have our normal broadcasts. Please do join us if you can. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz. Goodbye.